friends, and welcome to my 2023 Halloween special video. And I'm excited about this. I look forward to this every year, and unfortunately I didn't get a chance to do one last year. Life got in the way. So this one's extra special because it's the first one in 2 years, and yeah, I enjoy it. So away we shall go. Now, you can tell it's a Halloween special video because I'm decorated, and in case you're not impressed by the decorations back there, that is a glowing pumpkin. I mean, you can't tell, but I'll prove it to you. Yeah, but I'm not going to sit here in the dark in the basement, so we're not going to have that. Well, stupid camera tricks aside, I'm also wearing an orange shirt, so that proves that it's Halloween. And I know there's a couple guys out there that say this is Sam, and you're wrong. It's orange. It's a Halloween shirt. Okay. So, if you have not seen one of these before, we've got some traditions that we got to get through. The first is we have to wake up Bela, who has been sleeping in his coffin all year. This is my special Halloween pipe that I only take out the week before Halloween. Only smoke Haunted Bookshop in it because can you get spookier than Haunted Bookshop? And then the day after Halloween, Bela goes back into his coffin. So we will awaken Bela. Oh, I forgot, he got a cape a couple years ago, so we have to do the reveal here. And there he is. Isn't that beautiful? This is a Jesse Jones. Beautiful pipe. I love the skull shank adornment there. And yeah, Jesse makes a fantastic pipe. And along with Bela, we have a very special tamper, which my dear friend Danny Shore made for me many years ago from a bone that he found when he was out collecting bottles. This has affectionately become known as Renfield, and Renfield sleeps in the coffin with Bela all year long, just waiting for Halloween. And so we will load up Haunted Bookshop, and get on with the festivities. So what I decided to do this year, in the past I've talked about specific actors. I've talked about the Hammer Frankenstein franchise. I've just done dramatic reading of, I forget what the heck I read, but I've done a dramatic reading. This year I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit more fun, I think, a little bit less documentary-like. I thought, why not talk about my top 5 favorite pipe smoking moments in monster movies. I would say horror movies, but I got in some arguments with people about horror versus monster and blah. I think they're all horror, but we're going to say monster movies because it fits all the movies that I'm going to be covering today. Now, these are pipe smoking moments in the movies. These are not necessarily the greatest pipe smoking moments in movies, or even the greatest pipe smoking moments in monster movies. These are not necessarily the greatest, and of course in my opinion, monster movies, or my favorite monster movies, although several of them are. These are just my favorite pipe smoking scenes in monster movies. So I hope that makes sense. It's not a reflection on the quality of the movie, or my opinion of the movie, nor my opinion of the pipe smoking scene. It's just that the two things happen to align, or happen to coexist in the same film. Let me move Bela's coffin out of the way here, and we can get rolling. So, if you know me, if you've followed me for any length of time, the first 2 movies on this list are not going to be any great surprise to you, because they are 2 of my all-time favorite, I'm going to say horror movies, although others would probably say monster movies. Certainly 2 of my all-time favorites, and they both have very cool pipe smoking scenes in them. And the first one is the 1931 classic, Dracula. Any fan of horror movies should be familiar with the 1931 classic Dracula. Starring Bela Lugosi, this is without question one of my all-time favorite movies. However, it is surprisingly sparse in the area of pipe smoking. However, one scene jumps out early in the picture where Renfield, in his prepossessed state, encounters locals who try to warn him off visiting the castle of Dracula. Renfield is played by the versatile character actor Dwight Frye, nicknamed the Man with the 1,000-watt stare. The innkeeper is played by Russian actor Michael Vissarov, and his wife is played by Austro-Hungarian actor Barbara Bosky, both of whom are uncredited in the film. The pipe in this clip is a Tyrolean-style pipe named for its origins in the historic Austrian area of Tyrol. I've worked on a handful of these pipes, but never owned or smoked one, and I need to remedy that someday. To be honest, this clip is really only here because I love the movie, and I think that Tyrolean pipes are just really cool.
No, please, put that back up there.
The driver, he is afraid. Walpurgis night. Good fellow he is. He wants me to ask if you can wait and go on after sunrise.
Well, I'm sorry, but there's a carriage meeting me at Borgo Pass at midnight.
Borgo Pass?
Yes.
Whose carriage?
Count Dracula's.
Count Dracula's?
Yes.
So it's no surprise to anyone that I included Dracula in my top 2, and it will be no surprise to anyone that the next movie is the 1931 Frankenstein. 1931 was a landmark year for fans of monster movies in general, and Universal Studios in particular. And the release of Frankenstein, the story of the eponymous doctor's quest to imbue life into a body assembled from various parts of corpses attached together in a castle laboratory, made horror movie history. Boris Karloff was the unquestionable star of the film, and his portrayal of the monster has created an indelible impression on our cultural consciousness, telling us that this is what the creature in Shelley's book is supposed to look like. The movie opens with a graveyard scene. A funeral is coming to an end, and as the mourners and priests, along with his acolytes, begin to depart, we see Dr. Henry Frankenstein, played by actor Colin Clive, along with Dwight Frye, returning in another crazy-eyed performance as lab assistant Fritz. The pair are hiding and waiting for the others to leave in order to dig up the corpse for, well, parts. But the star of this scene is Atlanta, Georgia-born actor William Dyer, who plays an uncredited role as the gravedigger. I enjoy this scene for Dyer's wonderful irreverence that strongly contrasts with the solemn mood of the funeral, and somehow seems to highlight the creepiness of the whole situation. I also love the corncob pipe. Note the stem on the pipe, which I believe is actually a reed.
Down, down, you fool.
Now, there's another scene in Frankenstein that I have to include sort of as an honorable mention, mostly because it includes another Tyrolean pipe, which I just think is cool. But it's also a pretty enjoyable scene where the Baron Frankenstein is trying to figure out what's going on with his son, and the Burgermeister comes in and is treated quite poorly by the Baron. Some really nice pipe work in this scene. I'm not going to go into the actors and everything because this is just a honorable mention, but here we go.
Henry is well, but he's very busy. He said he would get in touch with you soon.
Don't worry about him, Baron. He'll be home in a few days.
You two have it all arranged, haven't you? You think I'm an idiot, don't you? But I'm not. Anyone can see with half an eye there's something wrong. And I've two eyes, pretty good ones at that. Well, what is it?
You're quite mistaken, Baron.
What's the matter with my son? What's he doing?
He's completing his experiments, that's all.
Why does he go messing around an old ruined windmill when he has a decent house, a bath, good food and drink, and a darn pretty girl to come back to? Will you tell me that?
Oh, Baron, you don't understand.
I understand perfectly well. There's another woman, and you're afraid to tell me. Pretty sort of experiments these must be.
Oh, but you're wrong.
And how do you know?
If you please, Herr Baron, the Burgomaster.
Well, tell him to go away.
But he says it's important.
Nothing the Burgomaster can say can be of the slightest importance. Good day, Herr Baron.
Now, one of the nice things about calling these monster movies is that it allows me to move between the genres of horror and sci-fi. And I've got a couple of sci-fi films here that I want to highlight, all of which have some really cool pipe smoking in it. And of course, any sci-fi movie made in sort of the 40s, 50s is going to have some pipe smoking in it. It just seemed to be what you did in those movies. Lots of scenes of doctors of one sort or the other, scientists all enjoying a pipe, or at least having a pipe with them as they were doing something nefarious. So this movie is called It Came from Outer Space, and this is a classic sci-fi film that if you have not seen it, I highly suggest you watch this movie. It is one of my all-time favorite science fiction films. It Came from Outer Space is a 1953 science fiction film from Universal. It was the studio's first attempt at a 3D movie, and it is considered a landmark film in the sci-fi genre. The plot, based on a Ray Bradbury film treatment, tells the story of a spaceship from another world crashing into the Arizona desert. Richard Carlson plays John Putman, an amateur stargazer who witnesses what he believes to be a meteor before he and his girlfriend Ellen Fields, a schoolteacher played by Barbara Rush, visit the impact crater, and Putman sees a spaceship that is covered by a landslide before anyone else can witness it.
You know who the stars say a man born under your sign should marry?
No.
Me. I'm a Scorpio, and a Scorpio always gets along well with a Sagittarius.
Really?
Now, Richard Carlson was a pipe smoker, and the first quarter or so of the movie has many scenes of him with his pipe. It is fun to see the natural way that he handles the pipe, packs it from a pouch, or tucks it into a pocket in his jacket. The pipe is not a prop in his hands. It's just something he normally does, and it becomes part of the character because it's part of the actor. And notice in this scene how he holds the pipe in his mouth when you first see him. You have to love a guy so dedicated to smoking his pipe that he will smoke it upside down in a helicopter.
Don't tell me you're going back to Sand Rock. When Lauren gets through printing that statement of yours in this paper, they won't let you walk around out in the open.
Oh, you too, Pete. We need help, not lectures.
Come on, Ellen.
Isn't there anyone who would want to help? What about Dr. Snell at the Wayne Observatory? You've done a lot of work with him.
Yeah. I'll call him as soon as we get back.
Our next film is another sci-fi film, and it just occurred to me that I probably should have been counting down these films as I went along, because that was the plan. I forgot to, and I'm not going to go back to the beginning, so let's recap. Number 5 would have been Dracula, the scene where Renfield encounters the villagers who try to convince him to not visit the Castle Dracula. Number 4, Frankenstein, the scene where the gravedigger fills in the grave and lights his corncob pipe before walking away. Number 3, It Came from Outer Space, with Richard Carlson smoking his pipe upside down in a helicopter. Gotta love that. And now number 2. So number 2 is another sci-fi film. And in this case, it's not a single scene, but it is the way the pipe sort of carries the plot. The pipe actually plays a very important part in this in the plot of this movie. And the movie is Fiend Without a Face. Fiend Without a Face is a 1958 independent UK film produced by Amalgamated Productions and distributed in the US by MGM. The film is famous for its creatures, which are unseen for most of the film and dramatically revealed as the plot reaches a climax. The film stars Marshall Thompson as Major Cummings. Major Cummings works at a U.S. military installation in Canada that is experimenting with the use of atomic power to boost radar range and allow them to spy on the Soviet Union. The local townspeople blame the atomic research for causing all sorts of problems, including their cows no longer giving milk. When townspeople start turning up dead and missing their brains, Major Cummings gets involved in the investigation that ultimately centers upon a retired scientist, Professor Walgate, played by English actor Kynaston Reeves. Cummings gets closer to the professor through his secretary Barbara, who's played by Austrian actress Kim Parker, who also serves as an on-again, off-again love interest for the Major. Now, in this film, the professor smokes a very unique meerschaum pipe, which plays a key role in the plot. I find this to be one of the best appearances of a pipe in a monster movie, because the pipe is actually used as a key element in the story. In this clip, notice the unique pipe shape and how it is very obviously a meerschaum and not a briar. This will be important later.
Well, this is the 4th death in the space of a few days. Not only are they terrible tragedies in themselves, but they're turning the townsfolk against us at the base.
It's just ignorance, my dear fellow. These people are simple, one might say. Narrow in their outlook. Of course, the very secrecy of your activities doesn't help. This development of radar boosted by atomic power.
What gave you that idea, sir?
Well, there was a piece in the Atom Journal about your work on reactors. Wasn't a year ago, and I read somewhere about the new radar patterns. Of course, this territory's ideal for that kind of work. I put 2 and 2 together.
And made 5?
So we say 4.5. But you don't have to worry, Major. What I surmise, I keep to myself.
Well, I hope so, sir.
Let me offer you a drink. Whiskey?
Yes, please. Straight.
Later in the film, Cummings suspects that the professor is somehow involved, but he doesn't know how. He decides to investigate the cemetery at night for some reason, and hears someone running away from an open mausoleum crypt. The Major does the logical thing in terms of monster movies and goes into the crypt to investigate. Having found the pipe, he immediately recognizes it as the professor's. Note the clever use of meerschaum and the unusual shape that make it clear to the audience that this is the same pipe. Had the professor smoked a briar pipe, it would have been just as any other. And in 1958, that would have been about as useful as finding a cigar butt in the crypt. Major Cummings is locked in the crypt and nearly dies from a lack of oxygen, but of course he's saved and goes on to confront the professor.
Major Cummings, for Barbara.
It's very late. I hope you don't mind, sir.
Oh, on the contrary, I'm glad to see you. Sit down, won't you?
We missed you at the town council meeting.
I saw Gibbons afterwards. His mind was gone completely mad. It's dreadful.
I was hoping maybe you could help us, sir.
Me? How could I help you?
You're an atomic expert.
Who told you that?
Our files in Washington.
Have you been checking on me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, would you care for a cigarette, Professor?
No, thanks. I'm attached to my pipe.
Professor, I read one of your books on the materialization of thought. You denied that it was possible, but the thought was intriguing. Yes, if it could be done, why, man could create power by thought. He could will a door to open. He could perform useful work without moving from his chair. Practically anything.
I said it was impossible, didn't I?
Is it? Perhaps with atomic power it could be done.
Oh, please, I'm tired and sick. Stop badgering me, please.
I will if you'll answer me a few questions.
Jeff.
I'm sorry, but I've got to go on. What were you doing in the cemetery tonight, Professor? Were you, looking for this?
And I think that is just a wonderful use of a pipe to help move the plot along. And really, that's all I wanted to say about Fiend Without a Face. However, I know some of you will complain if I don't show Kim Parker's most famous film moment. So here it is. So we've reached number one. Anyone want to take a wild guess at what number one is? If you know me, you know number one is going to be a Godzilla movie. That's why this is monster movies and not horror movies. It's because I had to have Godzilla in it. Godzilla movies are a gold mine of pipe spotting moments. I mean, there's just so many of them. But my favorite Godzilla movie and my favorite example of pipe smoking in a Godzilla movie has to be Raymond Burr's performance in the 1956 film Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Godzilla, King of the Monsters is a 1956 Americanization of the 1954 classic Godzilla from Toho Studios, Japan. The 1954 Toho Studios production was directed by Ishiro Honda, friend and assistant director to the acclaimed Japanese director Akira Kurosawa, and an acclaimed director in his own right, credited with the creation of the disaster movie. This film has a very dark and almost post-apocalyptic feel about it, and a strong anti-nuclear testing message. Keep in mind that this movie was released just 9 years after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Americanized version was a collaboration between Toho Studios and Jewel Enterprises, with director Terry O. Morse handling the newly shot scenes. The film starred Canadian actor Raymond Burr a year before he would become a household name as Perry Mason. Burr played news reporter Steve Martin, and this is 20 years before anyone had heard of that wild and crazy guy. This version dubbed most of the Japanese dialogue into English and altered and removed key plot points and themes which lightened the anti-nuclear message. New footage was produced with Burr interacting with body doubles and Japanese-American actors in an attempt to make it seem like Burr was part of the original Japanese production. And honestly, it worked. I probably saw this movie about 10 times before I learned that this was a modified film and that new scenes were inserted. I'd never noticed any incongruities. However, once I saw the original 1954 Japanese version, I realized that it truly is a superior film in many ways. It is dark and tragic, but beautifully filmed. I like Godzilla, King of the Monsters, but if I could only watch one Godzilla film, it would be the 1954 Godzilla. I can't find definitive evidence that Burr was a pipe smoker. He was a heavy cigarette smoker, but I can find no images of him outside of this movie smoking a pipe. However, in this film, he is rarely seen without a pipe, and he seems very comfortable with it in his hand. If you're a Godzilla fan, you know that most of the films in this franchise up through the 1970s are excellent for pipe spotting. But Burr's performance reminds me, in a sense, of Richard Carlson's performance in It Came from Outer Space. The pipe is not a prop, but it is a part of Steve Martin.
The damage had been severe, but fortunately confined to the dock section of the city. Godzilla was still in Tokyo Bay, and there was every reason to believe he would return, unless some means was found to stop it.
Steve. Hey, Steve.
Hi, Tomo.
What'd you run out of the meeting for?
Gotta get this story up to the paper. Anything happen after I left?
Yes. They're making one last big effort to stop it.
What's that?
Come here, I'll show you. Tokyo is surrounded by high-tension electrical towers. To get to the heart of the city, Godzilla would have to break through 300,000 volts of electricity. The officials are trying to have everything ready by nightfall. Now I must report back to my station.
All right. And thanks, Tomo.
So long, Steve.
Sayonara.
So there you have it, friends. My top 5 pipe smoking moments in monster movies. I hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun putting these together and gathering the clips. Probably not as interesting to some as the more historical documentary type stuff, but a heck of a lot of fun to put together. I'm going to leave you with one last sort of honorable mention here. I wanted to focus on pipe smoking, but this one, I can't leave it out. And again, if you know me, you probably know what it is. It's not a pipe smoking moment, it's a cigar smoking moment. So we'll go out on this. I'll play the clip. I'll let you know what the movie is. And say goodnight to you now. So I hope you all have a happy Halloween. Enjoy your trick-or-treating. Don't eat too much candy in one night. And I'll see you all real soon. The movie, Bride of Frankenstein. I won't say much about Bride of Frankenstein. This is simply a honorable mention. However, this scene is, in my opinion, some of Boris Karloff's greatest work. The humanity that he brings to the monster in this scene is stunning. You really get a sense of the monster as a thinking, caring creature. And you have to wonder how things might go if it didn't turn out the way it did. In this scene, he's met an old blind hermit who takes him into his care, nurses him back to health because he had been injured previously, and they become friends. And in this scene, they share a smoke.
And now for our lesson. Remember, this is bread. Bread.
Bread.
And this is wine. To drink.
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 Good. Good.
We are friends, you and I. Friends.
Friends.
Good.
Good.
And now for a smoke. No, no. This is good. Smoke. You try.
Smoke. Good. Good.
Before you came, I was all alone. It is bad to be alone.
Alone. Bad. Friend. Good.
Friends! Good! Now come here. And what is this? This is wood for the fire. Wood. And this is fire. No, no. Fire is good.
Fire. No good. No.
There is good and there is bad.
Good. Bad.
Good. Music.